Week 12 in the CFL. Andrew and Bobby here with you to hopefully deliver some winners for the week. It was an exciting week 11. How about those Elks? A little mini win streak for them, but hey, not much to say after they beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Nathan Rourke struggles in his first game back. I'm sure he'll be fine, but look forward to breaking down the week 12 games with Bobby. Of course, you can find him on X, Mr. Surrey Jack, myself at McGinnis Picks. You can find us here every single Tuesday on X and on YouTube. Bobby, how are you?
Good. It was kind of a rough weekend. It's not usually common where I'd have 6 sides on 4 games, but there was a lot of line movement. I had pockets full of CLV and I went 3-3 on it. So missed a teaser too. It's kind of how it's been these last few weeks in the CFL. But I think the only true bad read was those Lions. They laid another egg like they did in Winnipeg a few weeks prior. So we're in the position to win. It's just haven't got the bounces, haven't got the last play go our way or the command center go our way, at least my way. I think you've been a little more successful on that kind of stuff. But still up for the season. And usually the second half is where I do a lot better. I've noticed a lot of other people have said the same thing. So after week 12 last year, I went on a 15-6, including being apparently the only person believing in Cody Fajardo in the semifinal and Grey Cup. So
nice.
It's usually a bumpy ride to start the first half, and I don't really feel like I'm off on any teams. I've got Hamilton as low as you can have them, which I think is right where they need to be. And a lot of other teams getting healthier here. So there seems to be some good teams emerging, whereas a few weeks ago, like I said, you didn't have any real good teams just due to all the quarterback injuries.
It felt like the past few weeks for us on the show, a lot of the breakdowns were, okay, let's establish who the quarterbacks are going to be. So that's the reason why we're going to continue to start the shows off by predicting which quarterbacks we think are going to be the starters for this week. Before we jump into that, though, I just want to kind of elaborate on one thing you said there. And, well, I guess 2 things. Number one, being some of the line movement here. And I'll tell you what, Bobby, it continues to be the same stuff where whichever team takes money, if you wait until it gets a little bit too much and you bet the other side, you're having success all season long. And I think it's a really good example of, some people like to chase steam and like to see where the quote unquote sharp money is. But it's kind of like when I see people betting NFL X or NBA Summer League, those numbers are only strong when you're able to get the initial numbers. It's like these people that, like to say that they're kind of the leading indicators books. And then people follow those books and they're the sharps come in and bet, let's say, a team minus 4.5 in the NBA Summer League. And then when you find that information, you see minus 7.5, that number is no longer good to take. And I've noticed this year in the CFL, I remember when I was younger handicapping the CFL, you could pretty much say, okay, this team opened minus 3. Now they're 4.5, and you'd still be able to win on that team. That's not the case anymore. We saw that last week. And I think it goes to show that even though our friend, I don't know, I shouldn't even say our friend. I don't know if I want to say he's my friend. GRP wins. I'm sure you've seen him on X. He says bet teams, not numbers, and I feel like it's a perfect example of betting numbers, not teams, because last week, 3.5 to what was it? 3.5 to almost 3 or 3.5 on the other side with the Winnipeg and BC game. It goes to show that it might have been a little bit too much. So anyway, that was kind of long-winded, but I just wanted to say that. And I also wanted to agree with you that I do think this is the time to be betting the CFL. If you're profiting so far in the CFL, which both of us are, I know college football's back, I know NFL's back, but we're excited to hopefully make money the rest of the season. All right, before we jump into games 1, 2, and 3, and 4, what do you have for the quarterback predictions?
All right, well, you can't call these predictions until we get one wrong, right? We're the only people who aren't shocked every week when a quarterback's named starter. I think tomorrow you're going to see people shocked when Drew Brown is named starter for the Red Blacks. But we'll tell you right now, he's going to be the guy. He's been taking the first team reps. But if we go game by game, we got Trevor Harris, obviously, after a good game last week. And then we had Chad Kelly take first reps yesterday in practice. Dinwiddie says, "Oh, I don't know. Nathan Rourke was a little rusty on the weekend. I don't know if Kelly will be starting. Why are you wasting first team reps if you're not going to start?" So, of course, 2 hours ago, everybody breaking news: Chad Kelly's starting. So we knew that yesterday. Next game, Hamilton, Winnipeg. Bo Levi Mitchell, he'll be in for the Tiger Cats. Call me crazy, but when a head coach says that Taylor Powell, he's injured, not going to be playing this week, I'll believe him. Zach Clara starting for the Bombers. Next, we'll got Rourke. I don't think there's a quarterback controversy with Chase Bryce of Appalachian State. I think Nathan Rourke will be back in there. You saw him like, geez, this is the kind of league this is. You had Brandon Banks saying, "Why isn't VA going in the game at halftime?" Because he's not dressed. Like, these are the people. This is the kind of stuff you have to filter through in this league. People have no idea what's going on, including former MOPs. Drew Brown taking first reps for the Red Blacks. That was as of this morning, so he'll probably be back. And then I think we got our first guess of the season here. It's likely going to be MBT. I don't think they're going to rush Troy Ford back. That's not really a big concern for me. I have them as, I don't really have any difference to the line. Two different style quarterbacks, but in terms of handicapping the game, the line movement isn't really going to make a difference for me. I think that you might see Cody Fajardo come back for this week. He said it was more likely that he'd be coming back this week. They dressed him as a backup in Saskatchewan. I don't know why. I feel like that was just sort of for his ego. Not to say that that's an issue with him. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. He's blocked me on X. So he dressed last week. I think he'll be starting this week. So that's our first lean, I guess you'd say, for starting quarterbacks. But until we get one wrong, I think we should keep doing it. We'll be the primary source for information for starting quarterbacks in this league.
And I think what we're doing is simply just following the information that we're being given and then going off that. And I think that what's funny is it's kind of like in the NHL when I'm reading the practice reports that a starting goalie is going to be starting, and then 8 hours later I see a big TSN graphic, this goalie is going to be starting. It's like, yes, we already knew that. Trevor Harris was expected to start. 2 days later, last week, a huge graphic on every single network in Canada. Trevor Harris is back. Yeah, we already knew that. If you guys are going to make all these fancy graphics, at least make these graphics on the exact same day that the announcement is back, that they're here. But you know what, Bobby, as much as you and I'm going to throw you into this mix as well, have ridiculed some of the backups, quarterbacks, I will agree with some of the stuff people are saying right now. Quarterback play right now in the CFL is going okay. You know, I've been tough on some quarterbacks, but if you look around the league right now, you've got some decent amount of quarterbacks right now where, you know, back in a couple years ago or even last year, there'd be a few backups that could ruin a team's future. And I'm looking at Saskatchewan, right? Like, you know, when Trevor Harris went down, I saw the game here in Halifax. They were brutal. So you look across the league, and that's why you're going to get some shit from people for saying Masoli's not going to play, because looked all right last week, right? But it goes to show there's some teams that have more than one guy right now, which is good for the league. Am I being too optimistic? I'm in a good mood. I don't know.
I think it helps when your two best quarterbacks are coming back to the league with Rourke and Kelly. Davis Alexander has emerged as a good CFL quarterback. I think Drew Brown's finally proven himself. So, I would say as far back as 3 weeks ago, when you got VA dropping a Jake Dolegala, he's not even in the league anymore. And honestly, like we said, he wasn't a top 20 quarterback. So maybe that was the straw that broke the camel's back on that one. But I don't think there's any huge drop-offs anymore. Saskatchewan, even with Shea Patterson, they found a way to make him at least serviceable. And I think he got them through a rough stretch that I didn't think many of us predicted they would.
Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into game number 1 of week number 12, the Rough Riders and the Argos. I feel like it's given me enough time now to find peace with what happened last Friday. So I'm going to try not to rant too much, but I'm now on an 8-1 run. And I really feel like I should be on a 9-0 run in the CFL, but I'm not gonna complain. The Rough Riders still looked pretty good. And my fellow Nova Scotian, Brett Lowther, a couple of weird coaching moves, as you told me on X, and also some drop passes preventing Saskatchewan from pulling off that upset. But, Bobby, it doesn't get much easier for them as they go from playing a tough team in the East to another tough team in the East, getting their star quarterback here back.
Yeah, so this is Thursday night in Toronto. People are going to say it's a short week. It's not really a short week. They played on Friday, so just like it's not the narrative that people are going to say Saskatchewan's got a bunch of short weeks in a row. Not really. Like they've almost got a full week to get it done here. Like you said, bad loss last week. A lot of things had to go against them in order for them to lose that game. You didn't mention the pass interference call that the command center decided to call. The command center footage just all of a sudden stopped working right before Davis Alexander stepped out of bounds. But I think the worst thing was the head coach insisting on field goals in that first half. Field goals from the 5-yard line, like it's a ridiculous decision. Like you're giving up 30 yards of field position to the opponent instead of just pinning them. If you miss it, you're going to pin them. I don't get why people are so insistent on these short field goals. And speaking of those field goals, like he missed a ton. And where is he going? He's going to the worst stadium in the league for kicking field goals. So if he's got the yips, I don't know what it is. He's a better kicker than me. He'll probably figure it out. But it's probably the worst environment you can go into if you have any bit of doubt as a kicker. So you've got that going for the Riders. They played a good game, but a big letdown there. Kelly named the starter now for the Argos. So they've kind of got through that suspension better than I think they would have predicted. And despite what the TSN folks that are paid by FanDuel tell you, Rourke was rusty, but he's not a former MOP. They claimed he was right before the Lions game over the weekend. Kelly is. Kelly was the best quarterback in the league last year. Even if there's a bit of rust, I think that he still could be the best quarterback in the league. So this number kind of bouncing between 1.5 to 2.5. I think that's kind of right where it should be. I think the Argos should be favored by a field goal here. It's not really anything that I'm going to see. I don't really see any action coming on it from my end. But it'd be interesting to see if this Kelly announcement that isn't really an announcement moves this line at all.
That's kind of what happened last week with some of the games as well. Like you mentioned, it wasn't news to us. Somehow it's news to the bookmakers. We're used to bookmakers knowing stuff before we do, but it seems like in the CFL that it's not uncommon for us to know things before they do. You know, I'm with you here. I wanted to kind of find a way to be on Sask, but at the same time, this number is kind of confusing. But a lot of times, what do we always say, Bobby? When a number is confusing, kind of means you want to take the side that it's confusing on. And I know that's not really the most hard-hitting handicap, but let's not forget about a few weeks ago when Winnipeg was playing BC and, you know, we saw a -3.5 in that game and it was 25-0 final score. When you see an opening line like that, you have to kind of respect that number. The bookmakers aren't idiots. And for us to get that number tells us something about what they feel about this Argos team that's 1-1 lost 1, 1-1 lost 1, 1-1 lost 1. Let's not forget Shea Patterson put up 30 points on this Argos team. They ran the ball well. Everything went smoothly. The last time they played, what was it, 30-27?
Was that not Cameron Dukes throwing like 4 interceptions off of helmets and stuff?
It was a very ugly game. It was a very ugly game. Yeah, very ugly game. But point being is, I don't think that this Argos defense is great. And I think that Saskatchewan has had an overrated defense. I look at the metrics all the time, but they still have that bend, don't break mindset. Like, how can you be, middle to top of the league in points allowed per game and yet be in the bottom of the league in passing yards allowed per game? It seems like they do a really good job of forcing field goals and not 6 or 7. And, I don't want to just think, okay, what happened to Rourke is going to happen here to Kelly. But one thing I said last week to you, and I said a lot about Rourke, which I believe times 1,000 about Chad Kelly, because I do think Chad has much more of an ego than Rourke does. Chad is not coming back, Bobby, to check down the ball. He is not coming back to throw the ball, 15 yards. And one thing we see about the CFL, rhythm is a big thing. You need to have rhythm. You need to get in stride. You need to make a few completions. Or, next thing you know it, the first quarter is over and you've got 3 points on the board. I haven't played a lot of team totals. I'm looking at betting the team total of this Saskatchewan team this week. And I think overall, when you look at the number here, I think that, like you said, you're probably going to be able to get a better number on Saskatchewan. So I would wait to do that. But number right now is 23.5. I'm going to go over 23.5 points for Saskatchewan. And then I'm not really worrying about what Toronto's doing. And shop around. Not every book will give you team totals. If you don't like that, you can't bet it. Maybe go half bet, spread, half bet on the overall on its own. But what's your take on this Argos team right now? 1-1, 1-1, 1-1. This team doesn't really have any rhythm. They win one, lose one. They're going to have a really pissed off Saskatchewan team coming to town.
I think their strengths are their O-line and D-line. And if you have, look, they carried Cam Dukes. We thought he was okay. We thought he was better than most people did, but he's still a backup quarterback in this league. Arbuckle was serviceable, and even then, that was pretty impressive based on his performances over the last few years. So I'm pretty high on them. They were by far and away the best team in the league last year. They had one bad night, I guess. Maybe you could call that in the semifinal, but they were far and away the class of the league last year. And say what you want about Kelly, all we really care about is he a good quarterback or not, from our perspective, right? So I think it's a big upgrade. I don't believe there's any kind of morale bump or anything like that. It's kind of a weird situation to begin with, and they've been dealing with it all year. So, if anything, I'd probably lean Argos at this number right now, 1.5. If it gets closer to a money line, like a 125, 120, I'd probably bite on the Argos there. But I guess I'm a little higher on them than you are. I think their defense is a little better than you're giving them credit for. They've got their D-line getting a little healthier with Arimolade and Srezna back at it. So Wynton McManus out at linebacker is an issue, but that's kind of baked into the line for me. So I think they should be favored by a field goal here. So if it comes down anymore, I'll probably jump on the Argos.
Yeah, I wonder what this line would be in Saskatchewan. If this is the number right now in Toronto, what's the line in Saskatchewan? I find that one kind of interesting because I think it should be probably 2.5 Argos. So this is one of those games, I think, if I'm not betting the team total, I wait to see where the number ends up going. But it's what we do a lot of times. That's why we have the show on Tuesdays, and that was all you that decided on this number. All right, Hamilton, 9.5 point underdogs to Winnipeg, total at 49. And I got to shout this out. 1-9 over-under record for this Bombers team. I say it every week, and I'm going to keep saying it. This Bombers team continues to go under the total. I know you aren't a totals guy, but that means something here. And I'm going to say this. A lot of times, unders and dogs do correlate. We're getting a lot of points with a team that tends to go under a lot. Has me kind of thinking underdog here.
Okay, this is a huge line, right? And Winnipeg just came off 2 dominant performances against the Lions. They were 3-point dogs in both, ironically enough. I think we've been pretty successful betting the Bombers the last few weeks. It was what saved me actually this last game with them. I didn't think it was a good enough number. I actually didn't think I had an edge taking the Bombers at the 3 points, but when you have the Lions at plus 3.5, you have to jump on the other side and have that 6-point middle of 2 key numbers. So luckily I let the numbers speak to me more than the teams. And that's how you kind of have to work it in the CFL when you're originating more often than not. So this look ahead was 5.5. And I thought that was ridiculous. It's ballooned to 9.5. And I'm trying to find reasons to not bet the Bombers. I bet them at 6.5. I put that out on Sunday night. But what's working against? What would be your handicap against them? They got a bit of a short week. They still have their cluster wide receiver injuries that they've had for the last few months. No update on Adam Bighill. Don't know if he'll be back. But even with all that, I can't get these guys below 9. And that's even upgrading Hamilton. And only in the CFL can you just get completely torched at home. And I upgraded him because you have a head coach. Hey, he's great at situational decisions, but he's not great at these emotional ones, naming a starting quarterback who's I don't think is very good. So this could be something to keep an eye on later in the year. Their season's pretty much over. There's no reason why they shouldn't just put Powell back out there when he gets back from injury. But he didn't do anything impressive that game before he got injured. The media still loves this guy. I don't know. I haven't seen him do anything impressive in the 10 games he started. So I can't really downgrade Hamilton any more than I have. I've upgraded them a few points with Bo Levi Mitchell back in. But like I can't, it's a lot of points, but hey, the Hamilton's a bad team. And there's nothing really bad you can say about Winnipeg if you just take a look at these last 3-4 weeks, separate that from their bad start. They're one of the best teams in the league, and they still have the best home field advantage there as well. So I think I have to go up to maybe like a 12 or 13 to even look at the Ticats here. I'm hoping this Winnipeg number comes down a bit so I can kind of work it into a teaser with another game this week, though.
Wow, 12 or 13. My favorite thing about the CFL is that you find yourself bashing a team one week and then betting on them the next week, or vice versa. And I've done that a lot this year at Wager Talk, where I've had a best bet fading a team, and then the next week my best bet is backing a team. Only a 9-man league, right? I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to find certain times, and as we said, we're betting numbers, not teams. So you're just kind of going off what you see here. Hey, maybe I'm being emotional with this one, Bobby, but I think that Bo Levi, just the way that things worked, I think it's kind of funny. You get benched, the guy that fills for you gets injured, and it's kind of a serious injury that you don't want to take, rush coming back. And then it's kind of like, all right, man, you got benched for a guy that's not that good. He's younger than you. If you don't have a good game here and at least cover the friggin' point spread, what are you anymore? Because this team, I mean, you know who looks like the biggest genius right now with the Bo Levi situation? Calgary. Calgary looks like the winner out of this whole situation. Calgary said, all right, go ahead, go wherever you want to go. He goes to Hamilton, gets a lot of money, and hasn't done much with them. Their defense hasn't been good. But, I'm a big believer in teams that are under teams correlating with big underdogs. Yeah. And so you look at last week's game, we saw them go from -3.5 to +3.5. And don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing BC and their offensive skills to Hamilton by any means, but I think there were a lot of plays that, they could have converted on. There was definitely some chemistry issues for BC. And I think that all Hamilton has to do is have a couple drives that end in field goals, not punts, maybe one that ends in a score, not a kick, and they can hang around. At 9.5 points is a lot of points in the CFL. I think that we'd have to see, I think that if this team, what's the team total here for Hamilton? So their team total right now, and this is just for reference points, and this is a good lesson for everybody with reference points. If you want to use team totals, if you want to look at Circa, you want to look at South Point, Pinnacle, even if you don't have access to those books, it's still good to use them as reference points. I think if I can get 20, 21 points from Hamilton, I cover this one. And that's really the question. So I don't know if that's my bold take of the week, I guess. It's kind of an ugly dog, but I always say this time of year in the CFL, you're going to find teams to profit on. And Hamilton's a team that I didn't think twice about last week betting against, but they weren't 9.5-point underdogs. And this could be a team that could lose a whole lot of games over the rest of the season, but it doesn't mean they're not going to cover point spreads. And to me, that's what matters the most. That's the industry that we're in right now, is covering point spreads, not winning the game. So, and I'll be honest, Bobby, that's kind of how I feel about the game on Sunday. A team that might cover a point spread that went from 7.5 to 7, but might not win the game outright. Before we get into that one, though, any final thoughts on this game? And then feel free to jump in to BC and Ottawa.
Not really on that game. I'll just mention I tried to jump into your total betting last week and got completely destroyed. I tried taking the under 51 or or something like that in Hamilton, and they scored like 80 points or something like that. So I am what I am, and I know what I'm not, and I'm not a guy who wants to put a lot of money on totals. So and like you said, yeah, of course, betting. I know it enough more than anybody. Like the amount of times I had Taylor Cornelius 13 and a half points, and it was fairly successful. Even the Elks to the start of this year, you're taking this team that's a bad team, but it's also a bad number, and you got to kind of take advantage of those instead. So I wish you luck. At least you have Milanovic making decisions for you. He's not going to be kicking a field goal down by 19 or 19 he would, I guess, but down 20, he's going to go for a touchdown. So you got a chance of a backdoor cover more than any other coach in the league, I would argue, on that game.
One
in terms
hope.
of beast, yeah, well, he's the only guy who gets it apparently. So, and he's just hired one of the guys who really didn't get it with Chris Jones, right? Every few weeks, you'd be shocked at the rule he didn't know in the league. So, I think he's back in his happy place as a D coordinator.
That guy's going to coach every team in the league. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about that, really. It's just like that guy has a guaranteed CFL job just based on his name. What has he actually done in the league? I don't get it.
Apparently he won a Grey Cup, but I wasn't watching those years, so
I don't really.
I've only known him as the Edmonton head coach here. So yeah, and he's still getting paid by them. He's getting paid by the Elks to coach for the Ticats now. So
yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
So what's the number here for BC? Like favored by 1.5.
Current number 1.
Yeah. So Ottawa won last week. I don't think it was as definitive as people are making it sound. Calgary had it at midfield with a minute and a half left. Could have run it out. Masoli, he's not going to be starting this week, but he was what we kind of thought, a borderline top 10 quarterback. He had a lot of interceptions that were dropped, including one with half a minute left. Calgary pretty much choked away that game, I think, in the last minute. But with Brown back, I think it's a slight upgrade. I don't want to overreact for Nathan Rourke and the Lions the other day. I think the number should be right around 1 right here. I think BC's slightly better. I guess I'll just wait for a 3 on either side, or if I can get a game to get into that teaser range, I'd love to tease the Red Blacks up to 7.5. Hopefully I can kind of pair it with another home team like Montreal or Winnipeg. But as for now, nothing for me on this game.
So I didn't end up making any official plays on last week's Ottawa game, but I kind of said that I believe when those two teams were playing each other, take the dog. You know, whichever team was the underdog is kind of what my mindset was, really. But overall, I probably am I'm batting 500 when I'm betting on or against in Ottawa Red Black games, and I will admit that. But can we sit here and say that if we look at the win total, I know every event's a new event, every week's a new week, but at the same time, if we look at the win total from the start of the season, what it was for Ottawa, and then we look at what they've done on the season, can we say that they are who they are, or can we say they have a tough stretch coming up? I'm not sure. You know, I've been okay at forecasting flat spots, okay at forecasting when a team's had an easier schedule. There's 9 teams. You know, it's hard to say a team had an easy schedule when they played 4 of the teams in the league, when they're one of them, and then there's only a handful of teams left. But you know, there's going to be 2 things that happen here. Number one, people overreact to what happened with Nathan Rourke and the Lions last week, and they're going to say Ottawa's in better current form. Or number 2, people will look at this BC team and say, you know, their offense isn't there. This game's going to go under, and then it's going to fly over the total. One or both of those things is going to happen. But all I know is I'm getting a pretty much money line bet here on BC. That's had a really, really tough. What did they start, Bobby? 5-1, right? They started, or 4-1, and now it's turned into this, and now you're near pick'em against the Red Blacks. You know, you talk about a team. You talked about the whole Saskatchewan and Toronto thing with balls thrown off a helmet and interceptions. There's been a lot of fortunate stuff for Ottawa as well, and you know they've come down to a lot of sweaty games. And if you're going to give me a sweaty game, I'm going to take BC making a big play over Ottawa. And I think that when you look at Nathan Rourke, sure, the moment might have been big. And I was saying earlier in the week, call me crazy, but I think it might have been a good thing for him to start his CFL new 2.0 season on the road versus at home. And I think that, no matter who you are, he's worn like 5 different jerseys in the last 2.5 years. I think he'll be ready to go. I think they'll simplify the offense. The difference is, even though I do respect Ottawa's receivers, I think that there's guys that can make plays. Nathan Rourke has to put the ball in their hands and let them make plays. Sure, they want to connect down the field a little bit, but just get that completion percentage up a little bit, get more comfortable, then take some shots downfield. But I trust them a lot better. This is one, though, I will say, do not play the first half, play the full game. I think it still might take a quarter for Rourke to get going, and then we'll start seeing the real Rourke in the second or third quarter. So we'll see. But I also blame TSN for that pregame show. They squeezed every bit of that they could. And they were like, over at FanDuel, they're expecting him to get at least 2 passing touchdowns and 300 yards and this, that, and this and that. Well, it didn't happen clearly. And now everyone's kind of saying he's not the same. But -1, I'll take BC. And I do kind of lean towards the over 50 in this one. It's hard to argue points in this one. Even though they haven't been looking good, I still think they're a team that can put some points up, and Ottawa's a team that can go back and forth. So that's what I've got in this one. And now the Elks and Alouettes, we were getting a 7.5, and now I'm seeing at DK, it's just a 7. You know how key those halves are. What do you think about that game as I make sure my charger is plugged in?
So the Elks, you mentioned last game, they kind of got every bounce possible in their game last week and were able to kind of dominate the Ticats. This line here, it kind of looks like a Fajardo line where it is right now, 6.5, 7. So I'm going to kind of keep an eye on practice tomorrow morning. And if Alexander's taking first team reps, I'll take the Elks, no problem. With that touchdown, if Fajardo's there, I'll probably look to tease it down to kind of a money line pick with the Red Blacks. So it all kind of depends on what happens at practice tomorrow. Usually, I'm fairly confident in who I have starting each game, but this one is a wild card with Fajardo. He's starting as a backup for no reason, and everything kind of indicates that he'll be back this week. So I can see. I hope I didn't offend you too badly with what I said there. You might have disappeared for a second, but it looks like you're back. So it's just up to what happens tomorrow practice. That's going to determine if Fajardo's taking first team reps. I'll likely tease this with Ottawa and the Alouettes, and if Alexander's in there, I'll take the touchdown with the Elks.
Teasers to me in the CFL have been good this year. I've enjoyed them, but at the same time, I would argue that just because of how wonky the numbers are in the CFL, change my microphone, my webcam there, because of how wonky the numbers can really be, it's hard to really rely on the football math. And the number comes out so much different than you're supposed to. In the NFL, you can predict 27-24, 21-17, whatever. If I asked you to predict the score of a game this weekend in the CFL, your odds of predicting the score of that game is going to be a hell of a lot harder than it would be if it was an NFL game. Looking at this one, I agree with you. I think this is one of those games where I don't think the Elks are going to pull any upsets by any means. How inclined are the Alouettes to blow a team out? Well, you know what? Every time I've questioned that at home, Bobby, they've put on a show. They have put on a show with all those annoying horns and those noises we have to sit down and hear. They've put points on the board. So how can we sit here and say it's going to be a flat spot for them? I don't know if we can. I did say earlier in the week I like the 7 and the hook. I'm curious if it gets back there. But at this point, this is a pass for me. I'm going to see what the number does. 51.5, kind of want to lean towards the under because I think that if both teams until the game gets out of hand, I think we're going to see Edmonton try and establish the run game. But the problem is with Edmonton, I've kind of liked their new coach, but if they go down, let's say they go down 13-3. It's not that much in football terms, but this coach will immediately abandon the run and then make a pass-only offense, and then the pass rushers for Montreal are going to feast on that. I think the one thing people aren't talking about enough recently for the Elks' success, besides just their schedule, has been their run game has been really improved. Whether it's been MBT or Trey Ford in there, it's helped them a little bit. Right now, do you think that ATS-wise, looking at ahead of the rest of the season, we talked about it, this being a fun time to bet the CFL, are the Alouettes an ATS bet moving forward, or are they a team that potentially could be overvalued over the next handful of weeks? You know how it is in the CFL. A lot of times they like to juice up these teams that are performing really high because they know people want to bet on them.
Yeah, even just looking at this, right? They're 6.5. You don't even know if Fajardo's starting. If Fajardo's not playing, Davis Alexander, as good as he's been, this isn't a 6.5 for him, right? I think Montreal is still far and away the best team in the league, even with all these other teams getting healthier. So I don't see any team, even if they went into Winnipeg, maybe Winnipeg would be a slight favorite, but I think I'd take the Alouettes over anybody right now. I'm just looking to see like if I've been on them or against them more often this year. I've kind of been going against their number this year, so it makes me think they've been a little bit overvalued. Fair enough. I was slower to react to them in the first couple of weeks, but I think going forward, that trend's probably going to still continue. And if they're playing other teams, like Toronto's going to be a lot better with Kelly. Bombers seem to be doing a little better. I don't know if they play them again this year, but those are the teams that you kind of need to take advantage of until the rest of the world catches up to them and adjust their numbers for them.
100 plus live viewers. We appreciate all of you guys for being here with us. Feel free to comment on YouTube. We'll both try and get back to you guys, whether you're listening there on YouTube or on X. You can follow us both, and hopefully enjoy the games this weekend, make some money with us. And a reminder, we do this show on Tuesday because we talk about some games we like. We mentioned the starting quarterbacks that will be out there, and we give some opinions and some takes about last week. But, there's spots that we're going to jump in and bet on Thursday and Friday. We're not getting every single bet down that we're interested in now because the CFL, as we all know, the lines move like crazy. So, guys, make sure you're following both of us on X. Hopefully we can cash some tickets here in week 12. It really does us a big favor if you guys retweet this or at least hit the like button on YouTube. It'll certainly help us out. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time on Coast to Coast.